Okay, people, welcome back to another Fwoosh review. Tonight I'm taking a look at the Hasbro Star Wars Black Series Solo, a Star Wars story Chewbacca, which is a Target exclusive, and then the little Porg pack. Now this is one of those rare cases where I started seeing online that people were finding this Chewbacca at their Targets, and then I wake up the next day and go, you know what, I'm chancing it. I'm going over there, I'm gonna see what's going on, and I'll be damned, they had it. I don't know how many come to a case, but there were 3 on the pegs, and then I looked down and the Porgs were just sitting there. I don't care about Porgs either way. They're not going to make or break my display. I didn't mean to rhyme that. I'm just that good. Plus, I think the package is cute as hell. You're going to have to take me to court to convince me otherwise. I mean, just look at this thing. Here's the standard packaging. Here's this little, oh, so cute. I feel like I need to carry one around in my pocket all the time, just because. After seeing the standard packaging for so long, and then some of the ships, especially like the TIE Fighter, which is huge, getting something this tiny and replicates the packaging perfectly all the way around, it's kind of brilliant. But then the Chewbacca package, it's your standard packaging, black, red, pretty picture, figure in the window. But I wanted to point out a couple of things if you're going to the store looking for these. And the people that hate the packaging part of the review, ooh, they're missing out. One, you want to look at the eyes inside the package. The other 2 that were at my store were kind of cross-eyed. Well, not even cross-eyed. One eye was just looking off in a totally opposite direction of the other. And really, it's not the greatest eye paint in the world. It's just a couple of dots in a field of white. But I was able to pick out one that's fairly straight. The other thing that I've seen online but I didn't see in person was the slide on this shotgun type weapon. Apparently this thing moves up and down. I'll look at that when I get it open. It's missing in some of the packages from what I'm seeing on Twitter. But the good thing about those 2 things, you can see them right in the window. It's not a surprise thing like hidden down here and you go, oh, mine doesn't even have that. Chewbacca has no number because he is Target exclusive. On the back, the pretty drawn picture of Chewbacca, his bio. Down here's the warnings, the unreadables. Probably says something like, hey, don't forget to pick up the snack pack. On the other side, just Chewbacca, and then that enlarged font saying Chewba. On the top, pitch blackness, just representing the soul of every Star Wars collector in this day and age. On the bottom, bunch of legalese, UPC. So I'm gonna I had to come in with the other hand. I'm not used to that. And see how these stack. Well, I know how these stack up. Very tiny. See how this Chewbacca stacks up against the rest of them. And there we go, all out of the package. And oh, Hasbro, you gotta quit spoiling me here. First up, get the Porgs out of the way. They look like Porgs. They're nicely sculpted, and I'm kind of surprised at the paint here. They didn't have to go all out, but the paint is nicely layered, especially on the back to show the difference between the light feathers and the dark feathers, or if these are even feathers. Some kind of fur, light side, dark side, whatever. And then there is a sheen to the eyes to make them kind of glossy to look like eyes. Nice job on teeny tiny Porgs. But Chewbacca is the reason that I'm glad I got my ass out of bed and got to Target today. Now, most of the sculpt is reused on Chewbacca from the first version and then the Force Awakens. The Force Oasis. Underwater. The Force Awakens version. Those 2 were essentially a bandolier swap and then a head change. But for this one, a more elaborate bandolier had to be accommodated. It's like, hey, you want to carry more stuff while essentially staying naked? Let's add some strap to your strap. But sculpt-wise, the biggest difference that you'll see, at least when it comes to the body, is in the torso. It's missing a whole point of articulation. But that's not a bad thing. We'll get to that. Because then we get up to the head, and this is what makes it different from the rest, and specifically Solo. The first sculpt around the neck seems familiar, but when you go on up, you start to get into a tangled kind of mess. Now, we kind of saw this look in Return of the Jedi, where he just kind of let it go. He went for an 80s tussled, kind of hanging down look, and I like that this kind of goes back to that. Maybe this is Chewbacca's young rebellious stage or something, but I really like how it makes it look. It changes it up. It's when we get to the paint that kind of throws it off, and I'm mostly speaking about the eyes. I'll apologize to Hasbro. Earlier in the video, I said it was just black dots in a field of white. There is some blue behind the black, but it's still not photo real. It looks like a cartoony G.I. Joe type eyeball painted on what is a realistic sculpt. And then the slightly yellow teeth, the pink mouth, it again stands out against the rest. It kind of brings it down just a hair. But you'll notice I didn't mention paint, at least the overall scheme. And for the praise gripe session that I usually put in this part of the video, I'm going to have to bring out the old Chewbacca. First thing is, you'll notice that the fur color is much more natural. Sure, you still have the fades. What is this, a pointer? Sure, you still have the fades between dark and light, but it's much less blatant than this, where it's almost from part to part, light, dark. Okay, stop right there. If I remember right, I think this is the Force Awakens body with the old original trilogy bandolier, or I took the Force Awakens head and put it on the original trilogy body, just because I wanted a closed mouth on the classic Chewbacca. So the color gradations may not be this extreme on the original figure, but you can see light, dark, light. Here, it even fades on the same part before it even gets to the other part. Did I say even enough? Cool. But like I said, it's missing this point of articulation, which, when it comes down to it, you never got a lot of movement anyway here. But on the Solo one, notice how, I'm going to call it a skirt, you have to forgive me. Notice how pliable this is, malleable. It's just rubbery, it gets out of the way, and look at the range of motion here compared to that old one. Huge improvement there. Also, if you're wanting to take the old Chewbacca and either put the bandolier over here on the new one to make a Return of the Jedi style Chewbacca, or take this head and put it over here. If you pull the head off, you'll notice that the neck ball has changed too. The old one was more of a solid chunk, and that makes me kind of want to get a Peter Mayhew head. This one actually has a point of articulation. It's now a dumbbell joint. So on top of improving most of the Solo figures with the new dumbbell neck, they even did it to Chewbacca, so that's awesome. But you can't switch bandoliers because this is actually resculpted to fit the two straps over both shoulders. And also the fur, you'll notice this is sculpted up, this is down because of the one bandolier. This is for two bandolier. So it doesn't really work out the way you want it to work out. And I'm tearing my fingers up pulling these heads off without heating them up. So there's added articulation in the neck that works out because this is a soft plastic hanging under the face. Talked about this being soft, but the hands, for some reason, is a stiff plastic that make it super hard for him to hold anything. Why didn't they just use the same plastic here, here, and here? Maybe something about the hands, if you make them too soft, they pop out. Well, no, that's a separate piece. Or maybe it comes off the hinge. I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of technical reason, but it makes putting a gun in his hand a pain in the ass. Now, going over articulation on the Porgs first, the one that's sitting, it's pretty much a statue. There's nothing there. But on the one with its wings spread, those are actually on ball joints, so you can bring them down to, sitting position. They twist. They go forward and back. Above and beyond for an island chicken. For Chewbacca, I already looked at the neck. It's a dumbbell joint, but you can get a little bit forward, up, not so much tilt. This hair around here, yes, there's more range than the original, but it still hinders it. Then you get some swivel. Hinge and swivel at the shoulder comes up to there, swivels around. Hinge and swivel at the elbow, if I can find which way it goes up to about 90. Then there's swivel. Hinge and swivel at the wrist, swivel, hinge. Ball joint in the torso gives you way more range than you would expect on your Chewbacca toy. Ball going out to the hip, and because of this soft skirt, you can get pretty much all the way forward. Back, out, not so much, and I'm guessing because of clearance up in there, not because of this piece hanging down. Swivel at the thigh, and then hinge and swivel at the knee. It goes up to there, and then it swivels. Hinge at the ankle, but you don't get a lot of range there. Back, forward, and then forward-facing pin for rocker. This hanging down around it really gets in the way. But the fur hanging down where it does makes Chewbacca more Chewbacca, so I can't gripe too much. For accessories, Porgs come with nothing. Chewbacca comes with a pair of goggles. The goggles themselves are clear plastic with the silver painted around the rims, and then it's an elastic band to put them on. You can see there's more nose room here than here. I tried to put them on upside down the first couple of times because I'm me. But just throw it over his head, line up the goggles, and that looks pretty good. But you do have the band just sitting on top of sculpted fur, unlike the Figure Arts version that has a separate either face or head that has the goggles sculpted in. Where the strap goes under the hair, it looks much more natural. But I'm not going to be displaying him with this. I'm sure he's not going to be wearing them the whole movie. And then he comes with this rifle type. I'm calling it a shotgun only because of how it moves. But I really like the sculpt here. It's nice. It has little tech bits on it. The brown is nicely painted on, and it stands out against kind of the gunmetal gray of the rest of the gun. And looking at it, it has this moving lever. Well, I don't know if it's a lever or whatever it is, but you can rotate that. And then this also goes forward and back, which I'm assuming is to load another shell. We're already used to him having the bowcaster, which doesn't actually take arrows, so I can call this a shotgun that probably doesn't actually take shells. Now, like I said, his hands are stiff as hell. It's kind of hard to get that in there, but you can get in and then rotate forward, and he's holding it. My problem comes in with the limited range of the elbows, and then without heat, that other hand is not going around the part that slides forward and back for him to hold it like an actual rifle. I've been kind of faking it and putting it up on his fur like that because it looks like he's holding it, but for displaying on the shelf, I'm more than likely going to heat that up and put it on there. For comparison, here he is with the first Chewbacca, or a mixture of the first Chewbacca, and you'll notice that they shortened the Solo version down just a little bit. I've always felt the original was way too tall, even though it may be exactly where it needs to be. Compared to the rest of the Black Series figures, he seemed large. And I want to say they brought it down in the torso a little bit. His knees and thigh swivels line up, but you get to the shoulders, they're a little bit lower. And then they shorten them, I think, in the neck area to bring the top of the head down even more. Because here he is with the original trilogy Black Series Han, and it's pretty close. I feel like the top of Han's head, or at least hair, should be somewhere in Chewbacca's chin area, if not just barely below it. But then they went and made the Black Series Han Solo from Solo a little bit shorter than the original trilogy Black Series Han Solo. So it blows the scale out about the same as it is original trilogy Han and Chewbacca. Because here he is with the SH Figure Arts Chewbacca. I feel the figure arts is just slightly small, but because of articulation, because of sculpt, and because of the color, I still use that as my main display Chewbacca. But Black Series is getting closer. Hasbro is really polishing it up. Another couple of Chewbaccas and they should nail it. I say that jokingly because at the end of the day, Hasbro went out of their way to improve this figure. They didn't have to. They could have just done the same as they did the original Chewbacca, but they went above and beyond. The colors are much nicer. The sculpt works out the new parts anyway. They reconfigured some of the articulation to improve it. I couldn't ask for more. They could still do an Empire Strikes Back version or even a Return of the Jedi version. They could shorten them down just a hair more while improving range, making the hands easier to manipulate. But really, if they kept it the same and gave it new heads for Empire or Return of the Jedi, I'd be happy with that too. And then the Porgs, I'm glad I picked it up just to have them. They may go back in the box, and just a cute little thing to have off to the side. I don't need Porgs in my display. I have nothing against them, but to me, they were just, you know, there. They were marketing. They were for something to sell. But you know what? We've had that since the first movie, and I'm not going to go too far into that for fear of having comments of how the Porgs are bringing down the fabric of humanity and blah, 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 blah. I still like Star Wars. So controversial. But I'm looking forward to Solo. It wasn't until I opened up Han and Lando that I got super excited, and getting this Chewbacca to go with them now, I'm really feeling it. You get past Deadpool 2 first, but then I would get to Solo. And these final pictures, I didn't do these. These are Matt K pictures from the front page of Fwoosh. If you want to check out more of those, and you definitely should because he kicks tremendous ass when it comes to taking pictures, go to the Fwoosh front page. It should be up as you're watching this. In fact, why are you still here listening to me? Go check out those pictures. They're better than anything I could ever do. So if you like the review, comment, like, subscribe. I'll catch you on the Fwoosh. Yeah, I think this wasn't supposed to be released until June or something like that. Everybody was talking that way, and then boom, the next day, this popped up, and it seems to be spreading pretty fast. So I'm hoping for the same with the Gamorrean Guard, because I need a few of those. But my luck, it won't be near as easy. It will be weeks and weeks and weeks before I find them at my Target. Now, where's my suckers?